Hey everybody, we're going to get started here real shortly. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Adjust my laptop a little bit. Yeah, it's been the stress level before Gen Con is pretty high. I basically spend the day on having a bunch of meetings and getting this stuff together for the stream. We've got we're going up to Harrisburg on Sunday for this little convention nearby. So we have a prototype, and for most of the stream, we're going to be playing through this heist game I've been working on, which doesn't really have a real title yet, but it's a lot earlier in development than some of the other games we've shown on our in-development streams in the past. So if you're here for that, and you can bear with us with some rougher looking stuff than normal, a lot of the other stuff we've shown is further along or closer to coming to Kickstarter. This is a game that's like really starting art production and starting graphic design and like just getting out of that development phase. And it's still being developed and play tested, so things may change as well. So it's a much earlier look at and behind the scenes of at the game than other stuff we usually announce or have shown on this in the past, like Merchants of Magic's expansion Dangerous Business, which is coming to Kickstarter in the fall and is basically done, other than like a couple art pieces, or even Star Driven Gateway, which will probably come to Kickstarter sometime next year as well in 2024. But we've been working on that for several years, and the gameplay hasn't really changed, and we have like a really good looking prototype, which we were taking to Gen Con as well. We've shown you sort of like behind the scenes stuff, but that like looks really good. This is the first week we're going to do real behind the scenes with like some rough looking prototypes. I mean, there's some art in it, so we'll get to it in a couple minutes here. I'm going to wait till we hit 3 o'clock. Otherwise, I just want to let anyone know who's watching that if you want to go ahead and throw any questions you have just about what's going on with Rock Manor games in general, feel free to post them in the chat, and we'll get to them either right before we start showing and playing off this game and running through it, or right after, depending on how things go. Things coming up for us outside of the gaming world is we have this Harrisburg thing on Sunday, then obviously Gen Con's right around the corner. If you're a Dice Tower fan, they have a big summer mega announcement video that'll be live streaming next week, and we've got a few announcements, and I'll have a video on there. We'll also post the portion of that, our segment that we recorded for them, on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see more information about some of the other games we have coming up and pre-orders we're going to have available on our website, we've got a lot of stuff coming for Gen Con, some exciting stuff. So be sure to check our website if that's something. If you like our games or are interested in what some of the new stuff we've got coming out, we'll have more information and pre-orders literally right after that video on Dice Tower announces. You can't announce anything before it, so I want to be quiet. I don't want to ruin our good faith with them, so I won't say anything more. Okay, so I'm gonna turn over and run through and talk about this heist game and where it is currently. Everyone should keep in mind that almost everything in any rules I give you are almost are free, can change and might change and potentially will change. This game, I think the core turn stuff is solider than the setup, end game situations and things like that. So I've set up just a 2-player game. I'll sort of play both people. This is really more about getting people familiar with the ideas and the things we're working on than teaching you a game since it's not finished. This is definitely an open dialogue about game development and what's going on and where we're at. So let's switch over to the over-the-top camera. I should still be on screen. I'll turn my laptop a little bit so you can see me as we go here. So I did my best. I actually raised the camera up higher than normal on my table, so stuff may not be as clear. Text and stuff may not be as clear because stuff wasn't fitting on the table, but I'll do my best to hold things up to this small window, this other camera here, to show you stuff in person. So this is the heist game. Currently, I set it up for 2 players. It's meant to be a 2 to 4 player game. We're using this is a real prototype where you can see there's a lot of white stuff. All the stuff's been sleeved and sort of cut and pasted together. I was working on this last night. We have pieces from other games that we're proxying as pieces in this game. But the idea of this game is that you take on the role of sort of a crime boss or kingpin. So the 2 characters I have in this play session is we've got Priya Kumar. She's like a planner type person. So you'll see these cards that I'll be playing. This is my hand of cards. You'll notice the Maximum Apocalypse backs, assorted backs. And then the other person I'll be controlling is Frankie Stacks. And if you can't tell from the artwork, we're sort of going for like an 80s vibe for this game. So that's sort of like the technology level you'll see and sort of the crime stuff that we have. And then on the overhead camera, so these are our kingpins. You know, they're like mobsters from some other game. We've got purple and blue. The purple will be black or some other color. So the other black pieces we put out there will relate to that color. And then the resources in the game. This is sort of my attempt at doing a more Euro style game. So the only dice in this game are a resource, but there's no dice rolling other than that. But some of the core resources we'll have like meeples. These are like your minions for your gang or your crew that you'll put out in the city to control the city and keep your ear to the streets to hear what's going on and what potential heists are available to you. The other resource we have is we're using red cubes to represent supplies or tools to steal things. So right now that's like a briefcase symbol, and we're going to use a red cube for it today. And then the other resource in the game, besides money, which is the victory point condition, is dice. And these dice represent intel, and you'll roll them, and when you acquire them, and whatever numbers you roll, that's sort of what the number is, unless you change it. So those are the 3 resources in the game. Your goal in the game is to make the most money and potentially plan a getaway and get out of the city. That's sort of an end game objective that gives you bonus points. It's not a requirement. The goal is just to be the kingpin with the most money at the end of the game. So I know we've talked about the game in the past and sort of an overview, and I sort of just we had Art come in and I sort of showed some of the cards off. But in this video, I want to get more into the game mechanics and how the game works and how it plays. Over here, we have the sort of the timeline of the game. It's cards divided into 3 acts, and these are the heists that become available to you, and they will scroll along as you play, and then they fall off if you don't do enough heists, and then they'll activate sort of a police reaction to you. We have police on the board represented by these 2 ships currently. We've got some naval ships. They'll be picking up any criminals along the street. They represent the police at this time. You do have a policeman in each color because there's sort of 1 policeman that you each bribe. But more importantly, it's you move your policeman at the end of your turn that's associated with your color. And for any paths where things are equidistant, the player moving them makes that decision. So it just sort of makes a good game mechanic for moving these policemen around. Everyone gets to do it a little bit. And, thematically, there may be one particular policeman that you're giving a couple extra bucks to every week to make sure he walks around the other corner and doesn't arrest any of your guys in certain situations. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start playing a turn. I'm going to start with Priya, and then I'll play as Frankie. So I'll start with the blue player and then play as Frankie. Each character on these starting sheets has a starting resources up here. Tells you what resources you start with. So Priya starts with 2 meeples, 1 supply and 2 intel. Intel is the most valuable resource. It's sort of for planning. And on each character, the first 5 abilities represented by a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 dice roll. Each of those abilities is the same for every character. Then every character's 6 dice roll is like a powerful special ability that only they have. And the reason I'm talking about that is because on your turn, what do players do? Well, I'm going to read through the order and then I'll show it to you in action on the board here. The first thing you do on your turn is you play a card. That's one of these cards from your hand. At the start of the game, you're going to have cards all associated with your kingpin. And then you can acquire crew member cards, which are up here, which do more powerful stuff. So you play that card first. Then the second step of your turn is in any order, you spend your movement. My movement was here on my card down at the bottom. It's 4 currently. Frankie's is 5. You spend movement to move any of your pieces. So I can move a kingpin, my kingpin 4 right now because that's all I have there. But if I were to get some of my meeples on the board, I could spend that movement and move with this meeple 1 and then this guy 3 or something. So you can split up the movement however you want. So in any order I can do this. So I can spend my movement. I can tap cards that I've played down in my tableau, which I'll put as close to the board as I can. And I can use 1 intel ability, and those are the abilities on my card. I can spend an intel die to activate one of those abilities once per turn as well. The only thing I haven't shown people is that everyone is dealt 3 getaways at the start of the game. There's different methods of getaways. So we've got like a helicopter getaway from the penthouse here, or the safe house. Or a plane ticket getaway via the restaurant where you use some tickets. And then there's like highway. So they're sort of more abstract. But the idea is you have these 3 getaway plans, and as the game goes on, you'll have to discard some of them, so your options will become more limited. The only other thing you start with is a scheme you're working on. This is like an objective. My scheme, this isn't interesting to look at really, so I'll read it to you. The scheme that I'm playing with is have 3 meeples at the bank. So I want to get 3 of my meeples, not my kingpin, at the bank. And if I have that, I can spend as an intel action, I can spend a 1. That's what's shown up here in the upper left. It's a 1 die. I can spend a 1 die if I have it. I've rolled 2 3s, so I'm not starting with a 1. But I can spend a 1 intel to score this when I meet that condition. And it gives me a bunch of resources and money. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start running through a turn. If anyone has any questions, put them in the chat about this game or anything. I'll be sure to answer it at the end. We are not going to play a full game. This is just to give a quick overview of some of the stuff we're working on, potentially taking to Gen Con, playtesting behind closed doors, playtesting week to week among our team. So we'll just play through a couple rounds so people get a sense of it. So when we talk about things in our Discord channel or whatever in the future, or people can get a look at stuff we're working on, and then when they see the final product, it makes more sense. And that's pretty much the point. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, I'm looking at my cards now, thinking about what I'm going to do. And of the cards and actions you can take from a player, everyone has the boss action, the lay low action, the steal action, the plan action, and the recruit action. And then each character also has a specific... this isn't a crew card technically, but it's sort of played like a crew card. It's a character card. But it's played into your tableau like a crew card. And they have their own thing. So Priya's specialty is this master plan, which is the art. She's a good planner. She's good at getting... and this ability is set any 2 intel to any result. So she can change these 3 dice. I have 2 intel now that I both rolled 3 on. I could use that to change those potentially to whatever result I want, to set up whatever ability I want, whether it's my special ability or the safe deposit box scheme I'm working towards. Okay, so let's get started playing. And the first thing I'm going to do is And there's tons of other stuff out here that I haven't talked about yet that I will talk about when it becomes relevant. So I'm not going to give you a big rules dump at the beginning. I'm going to try to play and talk at the same time. I'm going to start with the boss action, which I'll put up here, but I will read it to everyone because the print's small and it's hard to read on camera with sleeves and glare and everything. So this card says deploy 2 meeples to the city and gain 2 heat. So what that means is I have 2 meeples in my supply that I started with, and I can place them now in the city, and they show up where my kingpin is or where I have a presence. And right now my only presence is where my kingpin is. But as I get more people, I'll be able to deploy them wherever I have blue. And gain 2 heat. And heat is represented over here. We're going to have this be part of the board. Right now it's just a sheet of paper. But my heat will go from 0 up to 2. And if anyone's played Grand Theft Auto before, these stars up here, you take heat and then you reach certain wanted levels, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. And that's how aggressive the police will pursue you and your crew of meeples. So obviously the lower your heat, the better. Right now I'm at 2 heat, but I'm not quite wanted. I'm still incognito. So cops, I can walk right by a police officer and they won't arrest me. They don't know anything. They don't know any better currently. So keeping your heat down is a big part of the game, obviously. You don't want a lot of heat on you as a thief or as a kingpin because, you'll get arrested and you'll have a lot of legal trouble. So thematically, that's something we want to capture. And we're going to do it with this pretty simple 3-star system and heat level. So now my second part, I've played my card. Now the next thing I could do is I could tap this card to act and do its secondary action. And once a card's exhausted, the only way to refresh it is everyone has a card that's lay low, which decreases your heat and snaps all your cards back to your hand. So I could tap this card to activate city tiles. That means all these city tiles have little effects on them. If you have a person there when you activate city tiles, you get that thing. Usually it just gives you some resources. So I don't want to tap cards yet because ideally I would spread my guys out so I could get people in as many of these as I can before I activate city tiles because then I'll get more effects and more goodies. I could use intel abilities, so I could spend a die and use it on an intel ability. Right now, the 3 die represents an escape plan, which is gain 5 additional movement to move my characters around. I don't really want to do that. And the other thing I can do after I play a card, and again, these 3 things are in any order, is I can move my character. So I've got 4 movement, and I do want to do that. I'm actually going to pick up one of these buildings. So these squares represent buildings. You got to use your imagination a little bit in game development. So these squares represent buildings in the city. And there's gaps between them because these are the roads. So the way movement works is that there's doorways drawn on these tiles. And you can move, it costs 1 movement to move out on a street, to move through a door, if you will. And then the other way to move is you can move to an adjacent street for 1 movement. So I could do 1, 2, 3, top in another building, 4, or another way I could do it is I could come out here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't end in the intersection of the street. So you can walk along the street. That's sort of how movement works. So I'm going to spend my 4 movement, and I want to be moving towards the bank because my scheme is to have some meeples in the bank. So I'm going to move this guy 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to move my kingpin 4 out on the street. So that's done my movement. I've done my second part of the turn. I'm not going to tap any cards in my tableau, and I'm not going to spend an intel action. So I end my turn by moving my cop 2 spaces. So these little circles represent where the police are patrolling and going to currently. So I lied about the dice roll because there is a dice roll about where the police are going to patrol next when they get somewhere. But they'll naturally make their way through the city, but you sort of know their paths. So this police officer is going to move 2 spaces, the shortest distance he can, but since he's my policeman, I can choose if it's equidistant. So he's going to go 1, 2. That's going to be his fastest movement because on 3 he can enter that theater, and he's checking out the theater to make sure nothing happens there. So that's the end of a turn. Quick turns. We'll go over here and we'll do something different with Franklin. Franklin's going to start off by stealing. And that means when you steal, you gain 2 supply, which are the red cubes. And in this case, you gain 1 heat. So he'll go to 1 heat on the wanted level. He could tap this card, the steal card. He could tap. The bottom effect is to conduct a heist. There are no heists out yet, but there's going to be one in 2 seconds as soon as his turn's over. That's the tap effect there. He doesn't want to do that yet because there are no heists out. And he's got 5 movement, so we will do some movement. His job is to get to the apartments, so he's going to do 1, 2, 3. He could move up to 5, but he's not going to spend it all. That's the end of the round. Once all players have gone, that's the end of the round, and that is when the timeline moves. So we'll reveal a heist card. I'll hold this up since it's the first time we're seeing it. So a heist card has information on it. To conduct a heist, you need to be at the location. This heist is at the clothing store. It's Grand Thread Larceny. You score 11 victory points, which is the cash symbol, if you successfully complete this heist. So you need to get one of your pieces to this location, and then you need to have these resources to spend. So the resources to spend are supply at the top, meeple or peoples to spend. They do not need to be in the city. They can be in your hand, if you will, or your personal supply. And then down here, we have the alarm system of the place. And this is where your intel comes in. So when you conduct this heist, you're going to get 2 heat, and the alarm's going to go off. This exclamation mark means that all cops will come to your location. And if you spend the corresponding intel, this is a 2 die and a 6 die, you go down each of those and you spend whatever intel you can and you trigger any of those effects. So if I had a 6 die, I could spend that to avoid the cops rushing right to me, and I could take the 2 heat. Or I could avoid the 2 heat by spending a 2 die, but the alarm still goes off and they start running towards me. So that's our first heist that comes up. It's at the clothing store. I do use these little Monopoly houses to mark heists, so people just know where there's a heist active. And that's the end of the round. Oh, I forgot to move this police officer towards his spot, which is going to be 1, 2. He's heading this way. That officially ends his time. And then you just start playing around the table. So I'm going to start going a little faster, showing off more in the game. These crew members up here, these powerful cards, they're all located at a specific spot. So the cat burglar I can hire, she costs 6 supply. I only have 1 currently. And she's at the penthouse. So you have to move one of your pieces to the penthouse so you can meet up with the person, pay the supply, and then you could take that card, and it goes right to your hand. There's no shuffling of decks in this. This is like an accordion. You have a hand of cards, and you're picking which card to play, and they're either in your hand or not. And that's sort of it. So I need supplies as her, because right now I can't steal. So even though we've seen this action again, I'm going to steal, which moves my heat up to 3, and now cops will arrest me if I walk on their space or I share their space with them. But I need these 2 supply, so I'm going to do that. I'll spend my movement. I'll move into the bar for 1. I'll move this guy, got 3 more movement. Move this guy 2, 3, and this guy will come out on the street for 4. And that's my turn. I move my cop 2 spaces. He'll go here to his patrol spot, which is the theater. He checks out the theater if there's anyone there to arrest, or if he came across anyone to arrest, he would obviously arrest them. And then I roll a d20, and I rolled a 20. So this cop's going back to the police precinct to check in to see what his next assignment is, I guess. That was just a lucky roll. Police precinct isn't a bad place for cops to be. They stay out of our way that way. With Frankie, I am going to deploy and gain 2 heat as well, just to get some people on the board. But I can deploy them where I am, which is nice, and it works towards my apartment's objective. So I'll deploy them there, and then I get 2 more heat. So we're now both wanted. His police officer will move 1, 2 to check on the department store. And then the round is over, and the timeline will move. So another heist will become active. And up next, we have an apartment robbery right here, where Frankie happens to be. So maybe that's what he'll do on his next turn. So on Priya's next turn, we are going to... What are we going to play? I could plan and get some intel. I'm going to just gain some resources. I'm going to get 3 more people to my supply. So I take 3 meeples to recruit 3 new people to my gang or my crew, and just put them in my supply. I do have some supplies, and I could get the bouncer. I've got 3 supplies. I get the bouncer for 1 at the nightclub, the master disguise for 2 at the clothing store, the safe cracker I can't afford, or the hacker. So I can't get the hacker or cracker. Safe cracker. But I do have I just played my recruit card, which gives me meeples, and then I can tap to hire a crew member. And I would like that master disguise. So where is the clothing store? Clothing store is here. So I'm going to use my movement to try to get there. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to move this guy 1, 2, 3, 4 and pop in the clothing store. Then I'm going to tap. So here you can start seeing that as you build your tableau of cards, you can start setting up combos. I'm going to tap my recruit card, which says hire a crew, and I'm going to spend 2 of my supplies to get the Master of Disguise, and the Master of Disguise goes right to my hand. So I only had 3 cards left, one of them being the lay low card, which brings all my cards back to my hand, but now I have a 4th card, Master of Disguise, which lets me swap my Kingpin with any of my other meeples. And then I can tap him to reduce heat by 1, which is nice, because he can use his disguise to be a little more incognito. And then the other thing to note on these cards, acquiring crew is a path to victory. They're all worth victory points at the end of the game. So I got 2 points by hiring him as well. And then as soon as someone's recruited, this does fill. So now we have a cook. And I'm not going to spend any intel. So at the end of my turn, the police officer will move 1, 2 back to the police precinct. We'll go over to Frankie Stacks. He needs intel, so he's going to plan and get an intel, and let's roll it. I rolled a 5. And ideally, what I'd like to do is I'd like to heist this apartments. And get 4 victory points. I need to not set off the alarm. I need to spend a 4, and I rolled a 5 on intel. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to tap my plan to re-roll up to 2 intel. I'll re-roll this to see if I get a 4. I got a 5 again, of course. Because remember, you can tap as many cards as you want. So all these cards in my tableau, I can start tapping. So I'm going to tap that to re-roll. It didn't help me. Then I'm going to tap the heist. It gives me another heat just from doing the heist. And I'm going to spend 1 meeple. I'm at the location. So I'm going to remove the marker. I'm going to spend a meeple for my supply. I don't need any supply. So 0 supplies, 1 meeple, and then I do not have the correct intel, so the ring camera of the apartment building, of the apartment goes off, and both of these circles will now change. Both of these cops are now coming to the apartment building. But you'll notice I did that heist, and I'm going to take I got these chips to represent how many points I have. I'm going to take these chips. Well, I guess I can just keep the card. Just keep the card. It's easier. I'll keep the card. So now both police are coming towards me, but I saved my movement and I can move 5. So I'm actually going to hightail it out of here. I'm going to go 1. That's the quickest way. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to run away from the scene of our crime. Then at the end of my turn, my police officer moves the shortest distance to the apartments, which is going to be 1, 2. And luckily, he would have started arresting me on next turn if I stayed there. He's going to hop in there next turn. So I had to run away a little bit. So at the end of our turn, the timeline moves again, and we're going to get a new heist. This is steal the stash at the safe house. So it's like busting up a poker game at the safe house. It's worth 11 victory points, so not a bad one to get. And we go back to Priya's turn, and Priya does have this Master of Disguise that we could use. But you know what we're actually going to do? We got to play a card first. I almost want to play Lay Low, but I want to activate City Tiles first. So I'm going to play this to get an intel plan. I got a 5. So I have 2 3s and a 5. And we'll show some other stuff off. We're going to show some intel abilities off and do some more combos here. So I like where I am, actually. So the first thing we're going to do, the cook's at the restaurant. Can we get him? He's far away. Safecracker's at the hotel. Far away. Who could I get? Can I get any of those guys at the bank? I could get that guy at the bank for 5. Okay. So now that I played my card, I'm going to use my 1 intel action. I'm going to spend this 5 I rolled to do the special ability on my character card with the 5 dice, the intel ability, which is Grand Larceny. It's get an additional heat, move up a heat, to gain 4 supplies. So I can get a lot more supplies. That gets me to 5 supply, which will then let me... Oh, I can't because I tapped that already. But I was like, I'm going to hire crew, but I already tapped the hire crew. I am going to tap plan to re-roll these dice, get a 4 and a 5. And then I'm going to activate City Tiles. So just to show you guys off that, it's also not a bad time. So now you go through the city, and each place you are, you get that result. So I'm at the bank. I get 3 victory points. Get $3, 3 cash, which we're going to use these chips to signify. And I take 2 more heat. So I'm really getting up there. I'm now almost at wanted level 2, which is real bad. And then I'm at the clothing store, which gives me a supply and luckily reduces heat by 1. And then I'm at the bar, which gives me a person, an intel, which I'll roll. I rolled a 5, and another heat. So I ended at 6 heat. But those are all the places I was at, so I get a bunch of resources that way. And that's the end of my turn. I did a lot on that turn. I'll move my police officer. He's going to go 1, 2. And then Frankie's turn here. There's a lot of supply. We can run around the cops maybe. I'm going to play Got the Connect. It's a special card. It gives him 3 supply. So now I have a ton of supply. That's not great. We're going to use our movement. And we're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're not going to tap anything else. So it's going to be the end of his turn. His cop moves here, checks out the alarm. Everything looks normal here in the apartment. So we'll roll the dice again, 17. And this police officer is now heading to the clothing store, which is not great because I was setting up for a heist there. The blue player was setting up a heist there, so now they're in trouble. I think we'll do one more round and then wrap this up. I like to keep these streams under an hour. It's just a sneak peek behind the curtain. For interest's sake, it's not meant to be a full playthrough or anything like that. There's plenty of other people online that do a much better job at that than I do. This is a way for us to show you what we're working on and how the games work and what's going on at Rock Manor Games specifically. So we'll do one more round each. Just to show that off, I think, and then I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 more rounds. I want to just show a lay low for sure, so we'll see. But we're ending soon because I have places. We're definitely not going to go past 4 o'clock, and I want to give time for anybody out there watching to ask any questions about anything game design related, this game related, or Rock Manor Games related as well. So I want to have a few minutes to wrap up as well. Okay, so let's go over to Priya's turn. This will move because we finished the round. And the next robbery is a breakfast stick-up opportunity at the diner. So you can see that at times there are up to 3. There are never more than 3 robbery opportunities, but this diner robbery opportunity has popped up. So quite a few robbing opportunities. I'm going to play. What is that clothing store? I need 2 resources and 2 people. I have that. And I need a 2 and a 6. All right, this card seems perfect. I'm going to use my master plan special card. I'm going to so it lets me set my dice to whatever numbers I want. And I'm going to set them to a 2 and a 6. Its tap ability is also a heist without gaining heat. So the steel card that everyone has is a heist plus 1 fire. My master plan is just a heist. It's a regular heist. So I'm going to do a regular heist without gaining heat here at the clothing store. And I'm going to spend my 2 supply, 2 people, and the 2 dice, the 2 and the 6, to avoid the extra heat and the alarm. Hack the alarm, cut the alarm, make sure it doesn't go off. So I'll give all those resources back. I'll score Grand Thread Larceny. Put that in the scoring pile here that I'm working on. And I do have movement. I do have 4 movement. I don't like this guy here. So I'm actually going to go 1. I can't go out the door because the police officer will arrest me. He'll be on the same tile. And even though that's my cop, he'll arrest me if I go that way. So I've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to get some people in that upper part of the city. And then my turn, I'm not going to do anything else. My turn's going to end. This cop moves here, checks on the apartment alarm a little late. The criminals have gotten away, and sets his next place that he's going to check out. He's going to go to the penthouse. So you've gotten a good view of sort of how the police work in this. We'll go over to Frankie's turn. Hire a crew. I got to get that card down. So I'm going to play the recruit card to get 3 meeples, which I don't really need. I need the tap action to hire a crew because we want to get that cook maybe, or the cat burglar. Let's go for the cat burglar. 1, 2, 3. don't want to stay at the Jewelry Street. 4, 5. Let's move over to the diner. Maybe we're going to want to rob that. So we're in the penthouse, and I'm going to tap the hire a crew action to grab the cat burglar to my hand. Cost 6 supply. So very expensive. But her ability is to gain 3. So every time I play her, I'm like really good at getting more supply now, which is good. At the end of his turn, his police officer moves. 1, 2. And the end of the round, we'll get a third heist out. Champagne caper at the bar, which is where the blue player is. Okay, so on our turn, we get to play a card. And we don't have... I don't think it's worth playing this Master Disguise yet for the ability. I do like the negative heat, but I'll play this instead. I'm going to play Return All Crew cards to my hand, so my tableau snaps back. My heat does go down 1. Then I have movement, and I have my 5 intel action I can take. I do like where I am. I'm going to go 1 to get in the restaurant. I like where that is. I'm going to get off the bar. I'm just going to do the 1. I'm good. That's the turn. So my police officer will move 1, 2. We may arrest this guy at the penthouse if he stays there too long. And we'll go back to Frankie Stacks, and then I think we'll wrap it up. People, thanks for watching. If you weren't watching it live and you're watching it later, thanks for catching the video on demand. Hopefully I'm doing a decent job going over how this game works and how this game played. Frankie's got to play the cat burglar to get 3 supply back. And then let's move 1 into the diner. 2, 3, 4. Move him over here to get away from the cop. And then I'm going to tap my boss card to activate all the city tiles for this character, which is pretty good because we've got this, which is a guy and a cube. So I don't know if you can see this pile of resources, but he's got a lot of resources. He doesn't get here, he gets here. He can spend, I can -1 supply to gain 2 victory points, which I'll do because I have a bunch. So we'll give him 2 victory points to his stack. And then the other location is here at the diner. We're going to get that cube back. And then we can get rid of a meeple and get an intel. And we've been low on intel as Frankie, so we were going to get that. We got a 1. And that's that. We can't heist. We're nowhere where there's a heist. So do we do this one? Oh yeah, I did that for the 2 victory points. Cool. So that's that turn. And because we didn't do a heist, the timeline still moves. This card's going to fall off and be discarded. And it's going to trigger this police effect on the back, which is we're on drugs. Each player loses a supply. So we each lose 1 of these cubes. And then we missed out. We took too long. The window of opportunity to steal from the safe house is closed. And instead, we can do a dine and dash at the restaurant. That heist is now opened up. So that's the flow. Eventually, just to go over the few things we didn't cover, and we're not going to cover, because I want to make sure the stream doesn't get too long, is eventually this stack of heists gets to these end of act cards here, split into 3 acts. And at the end of the acts, we have these objectives, and whoever had the most supply at the end of Act 1 would score points. Anybody who scores points discards one of their getaways, so their getaways become limited. And in the first round, 3 people score. In the second round, 2 people score. And in the final round, only 1 person scores. Their kingpin has to be in the city to score the final, whatever you want to call it, the global objective, the act objective. So at the end of the act, that happens. Everyone would get a new scheme. So you have these schemes we've been working towards, but we draw 2 new schemes and pick one to keep. Give us another thing to work on to get a bunch of resources. I actually was working on getting the bank, 3 people at the bank, but then the police were coming by. So, and Frankie had the apartments almost ready to score, except he robbed it, and then the cops came there. So you can score them whenever you want. They're just another way to score points. So you draw, at the end of the act, you get 2 more schemes, and you get to pick one to keep. And then potentially the other things we're thinking about doing is changing the player order and the police escalating things potentially. At the end of the act, police could escalate, maybe set up blockades, get police cars on the board, the police tension could increase as the game goes on. But I think for a game that's in development, I think that's a good look at the basics of it. I'm sure we'll cover it in a future stream or video in the future as things come together a little bit more. But this was one of the things I was working on to get ready for Gen Con in a couple weeks. And I know we talked about it on a previous stream, so I thought it'd be fun to actually set it up and run through and play it. Plus, it gives me good practice for this Harrisburg game day that we've got coming up on Sunday. So let's click over and see if there's any questions that came through. I don't see anything. So you're a quiet group, which is fine. But if you have any questions after the fact, you can post it on the video on YouTube as well. But I think that will do it for this week's live stream. I'm going to do one more live stream this summer before in our In Development live stream series that I sort of did this summer. I'm going to do one more live stream this summer before I shut it down for a while. If you guys enjoy these, maybe we'll bring it back in the fall. But I don't think there's much else to show and talk about until we have to actually work on this stuff. So I'm going to do one more live stream next Friday, which is right before we go to Gen Con. And I'm going to cover the games I want to buy. There's games that aren't new to Gen Con, but there's 2 games that I can't find anywhere online. And sometimes you can find them at Gen Con and grab them. I'm going to cover games that I want to buy from Gen Con, games that we're going to have at Gen Con, games that I want to see at Gen Con, either I want to play or, there's these lists out there. And these are the games that I sort of am looking towards playing or trying, either a demo or if I like it. Ideally, what I like to do is I like to demo something, and then if I enjoy the game, I'll buy it. But if the demo line's really long, or, I'm not going to sit there and look over someone's shoulder and wait 30 minutes to play a game or demo a game. I just never have that much time at Gen Con or these conventions. So sometimes I'll look at the game, see a couple playthroughs over someone's shoulder, and then decide to buy it. Or I'll just say, you know what, I don't know about this. I can't make this decision right now. But I do have not quite 10 games that I'll be covering for Gen Con next week, next Friday. And that'll be right after the Dice Tower live stream, a Palooza that they do, where we'll be part of that, but they'll also announce a bunch of other stuff from other publishers. So that's a fun stream to tune into next Thursday as well. So if you want to see more, I'll recover some of that information in our stream next Friday as well. But I think that does it for me this week. It was fun setting this up and playing through it a little bit for you. Hopefully all the rules and everything I was laying out were making sense. Hopefully my demo skills haven't gone completely out the window over COVID and everything. It's been a while it's been a year since Gen Con. I've done a lot of demos. So hopefully everyone got a good sense of this heist game. If you have any questions about it, hop into our Discord. If you have any recommendations, questions, etc. about the game, title suggestions, feel free to post it on the on-demand videos on YouTube or our Discord channel. As always, you can always come and chat with us in there. But until next week, I'll sign off for now. Say goodbye. Have a great weekend.